Ready? Okay. Today we're going to do the 23rd class of Innerface. We're only going to get a page done, but we're going to do some Talmud because I've been working on this piece with Baxt, and we solved it. So I'm going to teach it. How about that? We just got back from Israel. We had a great time, and we'll go back again one day, but not soon. The trip is brutal. You know, if you could get in a jet, and your own private jet that flew twice as fast as the airlines,
yeah,
and you left from Dallas and you just flew over there and got to Israel, and it took you about 10 hours, it wouldn't be that big a deal.
In a comfy chair.
You know, but it's the other 10 hours that just get you, you know?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So today we are going to study a very toxic piece of Torah. Nobody studies it because of its context and its content, which is the exact place we always go. So we'd like to give our study and the merit of our study in Torah to Israel and all Jerusalem and the following people: Stephen King, Abraham Ben Moshe Gila, Ed Stribling, Linda Flora, Carl Lucerio, Brandon Walsh, Raymond Rosentrader, Brooke Gibson, Paul Navarre, Garrett Matledge, Texas Oncology Patients, Rita Wilson, H. Ellen Betty McCuskey, Lola, daughter of Justin Lakeisha Neal, Berea One Staff, Elise Hagar, Nadine Freeman, Logan Willis, Billy Hope, Charles David, Rosa Hollander, Christopher Bederka, Noel Cardoza, David Douglas, Vicky McLean, Tom and Karen Maitland, Sandra Hayes, Carol Tickle, Larry Laneberg, Juliet Navarez, Blake Hunt, Leela Briscoe, Sam Peak, Uri Ben Matai Leah, James Linden, David Jenkins, Jake Suarez, Bobby Williams Sr., Sally Talamontez, Rogers Family, Holly Ward, Damian Washington, Carol Scott, Rabbi Richmond, Maurice Greenwood, Gracie Bell Linder, Brandy Boots, Amanda Elliott, Frank Pollard, Carol's Family, Baby Denard, Michelle Magnuson, Jenna Marie, Kimberly Brown, Debbie January, Kim Lively, Crispin Rodriguez, Sandra Hurth, Virgil Williams, Brad Mace, Jocelyn Olivia Nickerson, Jerry Matlins, Dylan Tinkle, Amber Merchant, Simca Ben Abraham and family, Celinda Sheffields, Luis Gutierrez and family, Aaron Price, Jazrith Carroll, Sonja Kinzer, Kathy John, Mike Christopher Ramus, Jean Senajop, Coach Nellie Warlick, Tila Buelo, Miranda Rosas, Jim Barfield and family, Naomi Simca, Terry King, Ronald Whitlow, Kathleen Graham Walsh, Brandon's family, Mila Rose, Monica Johnson, Ed and Dottie Garrison, Moshe Salavachek, Donna Marie, Farrar Sajid, Benson Ewing, Darlene Youch, Debbie Hinson, Anita Jones, Jessica Ross, Doug Eldridge, Bryant Welch, Phoebe Bridges, Salvador Gutierrez and family, Jacob Ben Simca, Max Wagner, set of Marcy Wagner, Mark Matla, Jim Labatova, Naeem Bat Miriam, Jackie Cup, Carla Manzanares, Beth Carmen, James Rogers, Alton Tillman, Elvia Rosas, Sarah Batsara, and Sherry Mayer.
And Carrie Knight too.
And okay,
Sherry Meyer and Sarah Batsara.
huh?
Sherry Meyer.
I got them on here. That was the last ones I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Carrie Knight.
Terry or Carrie?
Carrie.
Carrie Knight. Okay, and Casey. Casey Grubb. Got him. All right. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you, and may you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden study of your Torah, and may our study be pleasant before your place of honor as aroma of sweet incense, and may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being, and may the sparks of your holy servants through which you revealed your wisdom to the world shine. And may their merit and merit their Father and merit their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see the wonders from your Torah. Because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
Now, we are on page 95 in Innerspace. If you have your Innerspace, go get it. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, this is Innerspace Class 23 on page 95. If you have your page 95, we studied last time about the Partsufim, okay, and about the family, lineage, Atik Yomin, Arik Anpin, Atika Kadesha, Abba Imazan, blah, 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 like that, okay? And we went into the let us make man in our image and our likeness and all these different things with the image, the tselim, okay? And he made man with this Vav. Vav is 6. And Vav is the Yesod. And Vav is the thing that fell into chaos. This is Yesod Adam, right? So now that Adam's Yesod has fallen into the Tohu, or we're going to call it Lilith, the other side, now he has to have circumcision covenant, and that cuts the Tohu off, and then that exposes the crown, and the crown is the Teret HaYesod, or the end of the phallus, and that's called the Shekhinah, which is a feminine coordinate, all right? Now, back to page 95, top paragraph there. Thus, we can begin to see that the tselim, the image, is more than a vague prototype. Continuing with our analogy, it represents all the information put into a computer to make man. So God's taken everything he's going to need, and he's putting into this photocopier, and it's going to make copies, and it's going to make a prototype after a prototype after a prototype after a prototype on down the line until man as we know it appears. It's going to go through the Ori and Soph, then it's going to go through Adam Kadmon and Akudim, Nekudim and Berudim. It's going to go to Adam Harishon, it's going to go to Zeranpin, and it's going to go to Enoch, and then that's going to go to Noah, and Noah's going to go to Shem, and before you know it, this entire thing is transforming into what we know as a person today that's connected with Partsufim. 10 aspects. Okay? Continue with our analogy. All this computer program is going to make a man. This program defines all the stages that a human being will have to pass through. It determines exactly how long his gestation and how nursing period will last. So we're talking creation. And at what point he will have to achieve the maximum potential of his own effort. So there's going to have to be something once you've been created and you've been through the nursing and you're done nursing and gestation, you were a zygote in your mother's womb and you were born and now you were a nursling, then you were a young man and now you're a grown up. Then things are going to be on your shoulders, and you're going to have to figure out how to create in the image of God, which is make somebody in your image, right? In short, the program contains everything needed to create a human being. Although it may not look like a human being in any way whatsoever when it gets going here, it will consist of a series of numbers of formulas, but it notes where each and every cell goes and what specific function it is. The point is that this very abstract result presents into a human being. Another example is a DNA molecule. which determines genetic structure of the organism. Stretched out, the DNA double helix would be about 8 foot long, containing approximately 10 billion bits of information. In this way, it constitutes an extremely complex spiritual blueprint. In the case of Zeranpin, in the case of Za, this spiritual blueprint contains enough bits of information not just for one man, but for every man that will ever live. So out of Za comes all mankind. Out of that drop of dew from Za comes all mankind. In addition, Zeranpin is created with a mirror image feedback mechanism. Now, when I get in a Talmud in a minute, these concepts you're going to have to apply to figure out the Talmud. Because if you don't, it's going to become Musar, and it's going to be just a good old story. Like, I know what the Talmud says, but what is it saying? If you don't apply these concepts of thinking, what he's telling you here, you can't figure out the deal. So what he says here is there is a mirror image feedback mechanism called the Malchut, all right, which is the very end. So we have the 6 Sefirot, we have Za and Malchut. These are Partsufim. There's a Partsufim that's known as Za, the Midot. There's a Partsufim known as the Nukva. How do we know that this one Sefirot is a Partsufim? Inside it is 10 Sefirot. It contains 10. You see? Even though it's one, it's containing all 10 and for her. So, this corresponds to the double helix formation that's specific to its environment. In a similar way, Za's twin Partsuf serves as a function of executing God's plan for creation based on man's actions. So whatever he does, this is going to do. But as we know from Kabbalah, it's not stimulation from above, it's stimulation from below. All right? So if he's making this mirror image so that it can trigger everything, because if God triggered it, it wouldn't have free choice. This again is the essence of the Kabbalistic concept of awakening from above. There must be awakening from below. So if you want to get the wisdom of Torah, you have to stimulate it and work down here and work at the Torah and ask God to give it to you. And guess what? As you are stimulating God, He will give you the Torah. Okay? It's going to work the same way with the Shekhinah and Za. It's going to work the same thing with a man and a woman, as we're going to see in just a second. Because we're dealing with Partsufi. All right? And ultimately what we're going to find out is the amount of Torah you have, the amount of Torah you try to contain, the amount of consciousness you contain, the amount of sexual prowess you contain, it's all the same thing. Because in the world of Partsufim, there is no delineation line. One thing lays right over the top of the other. So it's important. So that is, before any spiritual sustenance is granted, listen to that, any spiritual substance is granted, there must be some effort on the part of the recipient. You're not going to get any spiritual prowess unless you poke God. Unless you needle for it. All right? You can't meditate on it and get it. You can't just sit there, well, I'm just going to sit here till God drops some knowledge on me. You have to look at a piece of Torah and then meditate on that piece of Torah, and then God will drop the knowledge on you. It is important to remember that a Partsuf Shalim, a complete persona, must consist of a perfectly balanced configuration of 10 Sefirot. These 10 sferot represent 10 parts of the body. Now, listen to this very carefully, because we're fixing to go into it, and these guys are talking what I'm talking, but when they talk in Talmud code, it doesn't come out this way. All right? That's why nobody understands the Talmud, because they don't understand Lurianic Kabbalah. Keter is the aura that surrounds the person. Hokmah Bina are the two hemispheres of the brain. Hesed and Guvurot are the right and left arms. And Tiferet is the torso. Netzach and Hod are the two legs. And Yesod is the sexual organ. Malchut represents the crown of the sexual organ, as well as the feminine counterpart of the 10 sferot. So that's Adam's rib. That's where Eve was taken off Adam's rib. It's called his sexual organ. All right? Now, y'all ready for this? This is a piece talking about Rav Yishmael, Rav Yossi, and a guy named Reish Lakish. Okay? Elijah the prophet encountered him. Elijah said to him, "Until when will you hand over the people to our God for their execution?" Yishmael, son of Rav Yossi, replied, "It is the king's order." "What can I do?" "It is the king's order." Elijah said to him, "Your father fled to Asiya. You should flee to Lutka." The Gemara disagrees with Rev Eleazar and Reb Shimon and Rav Yishmael, son of Rav Yossi. Now listen to this carefully. When Rav Yishmael, the son of Rav Yossi, Rav Eleazar, the son of Rav Shimon, would encounter each other and stand face to face, their midriffs would touch. Their guts would touch. Okay? A pair of cattle could pass between them and not even touch them. A certain noblewoman once told them, "Your children are not yours. You are both too obese, and that it is impossible for you to have relations with your wives." They said to her, "Well, their stomachs are bigger than ours." Then the noblewoman responded, "What I said is true, all the more so." There are two traditions as to how they answered her at this point. Some say, one line, bifurcation. Okay? Some say that this is what they told her. For as a man is, so is his might. In other words, the bigger the man, the bigger the man. Some say that this is what they told her. Love drives back all flesh. Now, that's the view of the women. What the men are saying, hey, I'm a big guy, I can make it happen. What the women are saying, love drives back all flesh. All right? So keep this episode in mind, because it's thrown right in the middle of another episode. Okay? Here we go. The Gemara questions their remarks. But why did they answer her at all? They should have simply ignored her. For it is written, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly." Who's this woman? Who is this woman? Lily. Who? Lily. Thank you. The Gemara answers. They responded to her foolish statement as to not create rumors about their children. The Gemara compares various sages. All right, So right here in this piece, everybody that goes to yeshiva learns this piece right here. And this is where they stop. And what's the conclusion? What do you think the Musar conclusion is about this piece? The basic conclusion in yeshiva. You're a yeshiva student. You got to read this piece of Talmud. Mm-hmm. Don't talk about fat people. Yeah. That's the conclusion. You know, the guys were so fat and the girls were so fat, and she was mocking them, saying, "How can you have kids? These kids can't be yours. You can't. How can you possibly physically do it?" And so that's what they learned from this piece. That's the Musar basic thing. And so right now, the Gemara has to come in and do damage control. And Tosfos has to come in and do damage control. Because look where it goes. And they don't go any further than this. Because it starts to get very toxic. The Gemara compares various sages. Rav Yochanan said, Rabbi Ishmael's organ was the size of 9 kav canteen. This is in the holy book. Papa said Rav Yochanan's organ was the size of 5 kav canteen. And some say that it was the size of a 3 kav canteen. And that Rav Papa himself was the size of a Harpanian basket. You see why they stop? In their Musar right there? Because now look where they just went. Now remember, go back to what we're studying Parsufim. Okay? So we have 9. We have 5, and we have 3, right? Mm-hmm. So we see a descending scale of part Sufim. All right? Now, does anybody know what 9 and 5 and 3 is? In simple math? How much?
17.
How much? So they can hear.
17.
17. Does anybody know what 17 is?
Tov.
Tov. Tov. And God saw the light, and it was Tov. So what do you think they're talking about here? You think they're really talking about their organ? No. It's code. Of Yesod, it's Yesod, but what is Yesod? Righteousness. It's talking about their prowess as a tzaddik. Because Rav Yochanan was a Tananim. Rav Yishmael was an Amoraim. And Papa was at the end of the Amoraim. So as the Hazal, as the great men of the sages, those beginning sages were on a much higher elevated Torah scale. We're going to call it level 9. These were on level 5, and these were on level 3. Okay? So we see that the knowledge of the Torah, the more knowledge of the Torah, the bigger the man's prowess. And the bigger the tzaddik he is. And the only way to marry your tzaddik is through Yesod Olam. Alright? It's a direct proportion. Alright? So, we'll go on because we're going to have to circle around and answer every question that's posed here about what the heck is going on with these Parsufim. You ready? The Gemara then turns to discussion of beauty. All right. So we had these fat couple, and Teresa already said we had Lilith talking about they're not your kids, and then we measured the size of 3 tzaddik's sexual organ in the Talmud, and then we jumped straight to beauty. And this is a well-known story. They skip that one, but they'll read this one. Okay? Here it goes. Rabbi Yochanan said, I alone remain from the beautiful people of Jerusalem. The Gemara discusses Rabbi Yochanan's beauty. He who wishes to witness the radiance of Rabbi Yochanan should do the following. He should bring a silver goblet fresh from the smithy and fill it with seeds of red pomegranate and frame its rim with crown red roses and place it between the sun and a shade. That luster that reflects on the surrounding ground is the resemblance of Rabbi Yochanan's radiance. The Gemara questions this. Is this indeed so? But the master said the radiance of Rav Kahana was a semblance of the radiance of Rab Abahu, and the radiance of Rab Abahu was a semblance of the radiance of our forefather Jacob, and the radiances of our forefather Jacob was a semblance of the radiance of Adam, the first man. However, Rabbi Yochanan is not enumerated here. You see what they just did? They took his beauty and they tracked the lineage all the way back to Adam. All right? So, who is running the program? Adam. They're just looking at it from this. You see. The Gemara answers, Rav Yochanan is different than all these others because he lacked the distinctive countenance. He did not have a beard. It's because he couldn't grow one.
Hey.
he was kind of like Jordan. He couldn't grow a beard because the beard is the distinctive beauty of a man. The Gemara continues to discuss Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan was, listen to this. Rav Yochanan was he was accustomed to sit to the entrance of the woman's mikveh. He explained, when the Jewish women emerge from their required immersion, let them encounter me on the way out and retain an image of me in their minds, so that they will have children as beautiful as I. What's he doing? Why are the women going to the mikveh? They've just been in their time of the month.
Yeah, sure.
And so when they're coming out of that time, now they are fertile. And he is the radiance of whom? Adam. So that when they see me, they will have that consciousness in their mind and they will produce beautiful children. Who did this? Who did this very thing and changed some sheep? You see? Because when you get the Torah image consciousness going, because it's consciousness, you can create and produce Torah image consciousness. Jacob did it with Laban and the sheep. If you can do it with sheep, how much more can you do it with people? So that they will have beautiful children as I and they will be as learned of Torah as I. He's calling the Torah and beauty and the union and creation. It's all one shmear. There's no line. Okay. The rabbi said to him, "Is master not fearful of an evil eye?" Rabbi Yochanan replied to them, "I come from the seed of Joseph, over whom an evil eye has no power. It is as written, a charming son is Joseph, a charming son to the eye." Rab Abahu said, "Do not pronounce the words Ale Ayin, but rather Ole Ayin. rising over the eye. Rav Yossi Bar Hanina said that the scriptural source was from here. And may they, the children of Joseph, proliferate abundantly like fish within the land, just as it is true of the fish in the sea, that the waters covered them, and thus the evil eye has no power over them. This is part of our at Rosh Hashanah, when we throw the breadcrumbs on the cast them on the sea. This is the proof text for this. So too it is true regarding the progeny of Joseph. The evil eye has no power. All right. So we had Messiah ben David and Messiah ben Joseph. See how the story switched right there? The Gemara records a story of the relationship between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Now, Reish Lakish, let's just say he was a mafia guy. He was a wise guy, All right, let's just leave it like that. The narrative begins before Reish Lakish rise to eminence. One day, Rav Yochanan was swimming in the Jordan River. Now, we have to ask ourselves, what in the world is a complete tzaddik sage doing swimming in the Jordan River? All right? Doesn't say he was doing a mikvah. Mm-hmm. He's swimming. Reish Lakish, who was then a highwayman, saw him and jumped into the Jordan River after him. Rav Yochanan beheld this display of vitality and said to him, "Your strength belongs to Torah." Rav Lakish said, "Your beauty belongs to women." So what happened? Rav Lakish was cruising down the road, looks over there into the Jordan River, and sees this gorgeous something, from a distance, jumps in, swims over there, and it's a guy. It's Rav Yochanan. And he goes, and because he was such prowess and dove in and swam over there, he's like, "Your strength belongs in the Torah." And he's like, "No, your beauty belongs to a woman." All right, so they got this dialogue going on here, right? Rav Yochanan said to him, "If you will repent your ways, I will give you my sister in marriage, who is more beautiful than I." Now remember, this guy had the countenance of Adam. All right. So who do you think this sister is? Yeah. See the story? How it's going? Who do you think Reish Lakish is? Yeah, the Nakash. Okay. If you'll change your ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always a holy Nakash. There's always there's always. All right. So see where this thing can go. Reish Lakish accepted this upon himself. Reish Lakish then wanted to return to retrieve his clothes, but was unable to muster the strength to do so. Rav Yochanan afterwards taught him the scriptures and the Mishnah, and made him into a great man. The narrative continues. One day, many years later, they were disputing the following point in the study hall. The Mishnah states, "The sword and the knife and the hunting spear, and the military spear and the hand sickle and the harvesting sickle. From what point are they to become tameh, contaminated? It is from the time of the completion of their production. And when is the completion of their production? Rav Yochanan says, from when the metal utensils are tempered in the furnace. Reish Lakish says, from when they are polished with water. Rav Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, a thief knows the tools of his thievery. So what did he do? He just kind of, man to man, he just kind of said, well, a thief would know. All right? Well, this offends Reish Lakish very much. Reish Lakish replied to him, how have you benefited me? He took offense to it. He was just playing. But Reish Lakish said, how have you benefited me? Now remember, this guy was just a thug. All right? Until he met Rav Yochanan. He says, there when I was among the thieves, they called me rabbi, leader, head. I was their leader. Here, they call me rabbi. Was I not rabbi there already? Is what he was saying. Rav Yochanan said to him, I benefited you in that I brought you under the wings of the Shekhinah. Now, he's not a non-Jew. He's a Jew. Every time you see brought you under the wings of the Shekhinah, everybody will tell you that's convert. Everybody to come under the wings of the Shekhinah is a convert. So he was a convert. What did he do? He converted him from a thief to a rabbi. All right? So Rav Yochanan says, I brought you under the wings of the Shekhinah. What do you mean, what did I do for you? I taught you all the Torah. You knew nothing. All right? Rav Yochanan became disheartened because of Reish Lakish's response. Reish Lakish became seriously ill. Rav Yochanan's sister, who was Reish Lakish's wife, came before Rav Yochanan. She cried and pleaded with him and prayed for Reish Lakish's recovery. She said to him, act for the sake of my children. Prevent their father from dying. Rav Yochanan told her the verse, leave your orphans and I will sustain them. She said, act for the sake of my impending widowhood. And he said to her, let your widow trust in me. Rav Shimon ben Lashki passed away and died. But Rav Yochanan grieved after him considerably. The rabbi said, who shall go and bring comfort to his mind? Rav Elazar ben Pedus should go, for his scholarship is brilliant. Rav Elazar went and sat before him. To everything Rav Yochanan would say, Rav Elazar told him, we learned in a brisa that supports you. Rav Yochanan eventually said to him, you are supposed to be like Bar Lakisha, Reish Lakish. Don't just say everything I say, oh yeah, we learned in a brisa, you're right. Oh, don't just say, yeah, we learned in a brisa, you're right. You are supposed to be like Reish Lakish. For with Reish Lakish, whenever I would say something, he would pose 24 kashas to me. And I would give him 24 resolutions. These are the permutations of the Halakha. Okay? As a result of the give and take, the subject became clear. However, you constantly say, we learned in a brisa. That supports you. Of what use is this? In other words, they're not expounding on the Torah. Do not I already know that what I've said is right? You know, what I've said is well? Rav Yochanan would go about and tear his clothes and would cry and say, where are you, Bar Lakisha? Where are you, Bar Lakisha? He would scream until his sanity wore away from him, and the rabbis prayed for mercy on him, and Rabbi Yochanan died. All right? So, what in the world is going on with this piece of Talmud? We have fat people trying to make kids and a lady mocking them. All right? Then we have the piece where we have all the measurements, we'll call them the measurements of the sages, right? And then we have the piece of the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan. And then we have the death of Reish Lakish. and there's no more kashas being brought. Nobody's learning the Torah the right way, and Rabbi Yochanan dies. So, what is the deal? Let's hear it.
They're not contained in the light and they're shattered.
Yeah.
Is it the same story repeated several times in several iterations?
Okay, we're talking about Partsuf, all right, and so let's take the first set. Let's take the men, and let's take the women, right? The big fat men and the big fat women and the noble woman, all right. So we know that cows are considered guverot, but then they're also feminine aspect, but they're also backside. They're also backside stuff, right? Because we have the bull, the cow, the calf, and the heifer. That's all backside stuff that we can say. So these guys were so big, right, that the klipa could pass underneath them and not even bother.
They're already condemned.
You know, they're that big.
Condemned themselves.
Okay, and so the Lilith over here says, how can God possibly create creation? You know, and because he's above everything. So what does the sages say? Through our women, the women say love pushbacks the flesh. What's the flesh? The orla, right? The klipa, the orla. The love pushes back the flesh. What's that called? Stimulation from below. They just gave us right there how everything is done. Stimulation from below. And so through this stimulation from below, this whole first piece is talking about curvatures. Their big bellies, the big this, the guverot, all the curvatures. And they put it off on the woman, the Lilith, curved light. The woman, the women of the sages, the curved light. So what's the next piece that they bring into? Straight light. The tzaddik, the partsufim of the tzaddik. And we just got through reading right here a while ago that the partsuf, the keters, the aura, the hokmah, the two hemispheres of the brain, guverot. So if we go 9, here's how the Maharal of Prague breaks down the numbers. 9 is 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands, 2 feet. And the 9th one is Yesod. Now you got to understand, he didn't know Lurianic Kabbalah. They're going on at the same time. All right? But if you count 9 Sphirot down, you hit right here because this one's 10. You see? Now, so we're gonna, but that's got the mind in it. That's got the what we call Chabad. That's got the brain. Okay? What happens when you just have the 2 hands, and the 2 feet, and you sewed? That's 5. That's the Hagat. What happens when you just have the
2 feet?
Yeah, the 2 feet and you sewed? That's 3. That's the Nahi. You see what he's explaining? When they first, the knowledge of the first set of Tanim was pure consciousness. The next set of guys is less consciousness. And the next set is less consciousness. However, it's all headed right here to the Malchut. And the women create the stimulation from below. That's how something so big can work and produce fruit. Because the harponi is a word for mouth. So how do they do it? By their mouth, speaking. Now, a basket is something you carry something in. Because it says, well, Papa, Rav Papa, his was the size of a basket. But the basket is the Teret HaYesod. The basket is the Malchut. So the basket is also a vessel. Not only is it curved light, but it's concave and it's convex. It's concave and it's convex. So it can penetrate, but it can also contain. So you see the minds of the sages of what they're teaching within this context of curved light, straight light, and then they go right in to the creation of the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan, who is none other than Adam. And the story picks up, and he's swimming in the river Yesod, all right, and he's the Nakash is supposed to be his helper, and he gives him his sister, but he becomes haughty because he didn't appreciate the Torah. What have you done for me? You know? And so it brings death on everything. This is the mind of the sages. It's beautiful.
What is that with the Eve pleading with Adam for my widowhood, on the behalf of my children, and him saying, no, you gotta just leave it?
Because he's got to fix it.
Oh, okay.
His fault. You know, I mean, Adam knew, right? Adam knows. She's only extension of him. You know, he's the one that Rabbi Yochanan is the one that set up the whole deal.
So by him dying, it fixes it?
Well, it's in here. It's kind of the end of the story, so that you know you can work on the iteration. But what it's trying to say is that he was the mouth. All right, let's stay there. The basket and Harponi, that's why he called it a certain name, because that means the mouth. But the mouth is also Malchut. But the mouth is also here. And the Teret HaYesod is also there. So the end is looped in the beginning. They're trying to show that what is also singularity high up is singularity that low, and one is looped into the other. You know, from my mouth to your ears, from your mouth to his ears, it just keeps going. All right? So,
Did he speak death of himself because he was speaking against the Torah?
the whole thing with the death is talking about the end of the sages period. You know, we had the Tanim, the Amoraim, and all that, and then the Torah stopped.
It's a time.
It's the stop of consciousness. You see, it's the stop of the desire. It's the death of everything. You know, it's the exile of Torah.
Right.
It involves everything.
Without Torah, everything dies.
Yes, it's this creation. It's the sexual prowess. It's the Talmudic time period. Everything is wrapped up in that exile.
So now only the Yesod is left.
That's it. And the basket has been separated, you know, and so there's nothing to fill it. There's nobody putting anything in it, and nobody carrying anything around. And so the sages are praying, well, it's just gone. How many scenarios are in the Talmud like this? Like Antoninus and Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince. What did he say? When Antoninus died, he said, it's become unraveled. What happened when Rav Lakish said? They brought the smartest Torah scholar to him and said, you don't study Torah right. You just say I'm right. You don't bring a kasha to me. We don't work, and we don't work the Torah. The Torah is dying. It wasn't, Rabbi Yochanan was dying, but it's the Torah is dying. He said he would bring 24 kashas, and I would give him 24 resolutions.
24 kasha questions and 24 resolutions.
Nobody works the Havayah anymore. Nobody works Torah like that. Nobody.
That's why it was higher. The higher up you go, the Tananim and all this stuff. That's why they were in the Mochim. They were working it, and it elevated themselves up in their consciousness
That's
at
correct.
that level.
That's correct.
I was wondering if there's some kind of a parallel too with way back when and how long they lived, or is that too far back?
They
had more life to study Torah.
Well, the numbers always represent dispensation. Okay, so we have the ones, the tens, the hundreds, the thousands. Okay, so because Adam was Atzilut, he lived 930. He gave 70 years of his life to David.
Right.
Well, that's 1,000.
Yeah.
All right. So the hundreds, Noah was 600 when he entered the ark. Well, there's your 600. So that's Berea. Jacob 130. I think Abraham 187, somewhere around in there. They're living in the world of Yetzirah. Once you get down to King David lived 70. Now the days and numbers of a man's life are 70. You got the fall is in increments.
Right. Yeah,
and so the numbers always tell you in Torah where you're working. So if David made 300 gerim and Solomon made 3,600 gerim, and they were, you know where you're working. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right? You know where you're working. Everything in Torah is like that. Okay? Ones, tens, hundred, thousands. Asiya, Yetzirah, Berea, Atzilut. You can always. All right? So.
But here, when you were talking about this in the Jerusalem Talmud, when we're talking about these earlier sages, but it would say in the Jerusalem Talmud that the study of Torah is equal to prayer. Well, how when I asked the question, how is that possible? It's talking about because of where they were at.
Because where they were at. That's right.
If they studied Torah, when they studied Torah at that level, it was as if they were praying.
Yeah.
It was equal to prayer.
Why? Because it's all about stimulation from below. Yeah. It's all about the stimulation. Prayer is stimulation from below.
Exactly.
All right?
Exactly.
Studying Torah is stimulation. Yeah. Poking, needling God is needling God. This is working in God's mind. This is what He's thinking.
Yeah, they're working in it.
They're working in it. They're making the connections in Zah, and fixing it, and that's why the kasha question, and that's why all these things are so powerful, and that's why I throw that stuff at you all the time, is because it makes you use your consciousness. It's not something you can go look up. You got to make a resolution, all right? So, basically the first part of the piece is female, the second part is male, and then you get into the creation and the Adamic part, all right? But the whole thing is talking about the consciousness of Torah and the sexuality of creation, and it's all one single thing, and that it's depleting and it's going down in category to the point of death. To the point it doesn't happen anymore. All right. So it's once we know this, we can redeem the whole piece. We can redeem the whole part. All the way back to the Gon, but through all the Hazal and the sages, that when we look at these pieces of Talmud, they're not just Musar stories. They're deep formulas of creation, and they're not talking about the size of their male genitalia. But everybody will read it and think they are.
Right.
Everyone.
Now that we're in the end times, hopefully that these starting to level off and hopefully start to ascend.
Well,
We're learning
We're-
Kabbalah.
we're learning. What does the Golden Vilna say? And the year in the year basically 1990. Let's call it that. At high noon on Friday before Shabbat,
Yeah, 1990.
the stimulation from below will cause the release from above. Okay? And in 1990, the internet was created, B'nai Noach with Vendel. I mean, there's a lot of pivotal things.
Things were happening. Yeah.
And it said, what he says, the Kabbalah will be taught, will start to be taught. All right? So when you start learning that and you start teaching that and when you start working that, the floodgates from above open up. Okay? The wisdom from above. The 7 sciences, the 7 wisdoms. So, I mean, it's unprecedented what we're doing in Torah these days. We're taking science, string theory, M theory, Taurus, whatever, and we're putting it on the train Mashiachim, the twin messiahs, and we're being able to study it, and we're being able to look at a piece like this, pick it apart, throw it on the board, put it back together,
Make sense out of it.
and make sense out of it. Out of the last sentence of this piece, Keter was the aura that surrounds the person. Chokmah and Bina are the 2 hemispheres of the brain. Hesed and Guvro, the right and left arms. And Tiferet is the torso. Netzach and Ho are the 2 legs. Yesod is the sexual organ. Malchut is the crown of the sexual organ, as well as a complete feminine counterpart of a 10 Sefirot. They just described the entire thing in a different way, with stimulation from below. When we then say that Keter is a Recon Peen, Chokmah and Bina are Abba and Ima, and this means that each of these Partsufim begin a complete configuration of the 10 Sefirot. Zah and Malchut are different aspects, etc., etc. The Ari explains this is why these 2 Partsuf are so intimately related to man. We just studied Partsufim in the Talmud and we didn't even know it. You wouldn't know it but we blended it.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
We blended it, and that is the beauty of learning pieces like this. So, with that, Torah is amazing, and the sages are amazing, and we're glad to be back from Israel. We had a fantastic time. On my homepage, I put all the pictures. If anybody wants to follow the entire trip, it's on there. And we'll see you next week. Adios, everybody.